Hey, what's going on? This is the Body Punch Podcast, and my name is Naz. Let's talk about Gegard Mousasi versus Austin Vanderford. Really nice Friday afternoon card here in North America in the Eastern Time Zone in Dublin, Ireland. Bellator 275. Austin Vanderford versus Gegard Mousasi. Gegard Mousasi, regarded as one of the best middleweights in the world, and is up there with the likes of Ciryl Adesanya, calling out names like Anderson Silva and beating former UFC champions like Chris Weidman. Facing off against Austin Vanderford, funny enough called Mr. Van Zandt, who was, unfortunately for him, taken out in the first round at 1 minute and 25 seconds in front of the Dublin crowd, which featured the likes of Conor McGregor and many SPG fighters, coaches, and a bunch of the Irish crowd. Bellator has a strong foothold in Ireland, and fighting in the arena that they did with having the history that they have there. The atmosphere was amazing. The timing was perfectly catered for the Irish fans. And they got a treat of a main event where one of the all-time greats at middleweight, Gegard Mousasi, put on a clinic against Austin Vanderford. Austin Vanderford, even though the fight was really short, you could see some tactical errors that were happening in the fight where he was just going, careening forward and stepping right into line with wide shots against Gegard Mousasi. At one point, shooting for a takedown and got stuffed, and then Gegard Mousasi took advantage of it. Gegard Mousasi, who has this illustrious career in mixed martial arts, fighting in heavyweight, fighting in the middleweight, which he currently has a control over in Bellator, but having an amazing career, and just the lists of names that are on his career, on the list of people that he's fought. You see the likes of Chris Weidman, which I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, Douglas Lima, Lyoto Machida, Rory McDonald. These are all the wins that I'm naming off. Vitor Belfort, Uriah Hall. The list goes on and on and on. And even before his amazing career in the UFC, he fought in heavyweight in Japan against Mark Hunt, all-time great, and defeating him. And that was in 2009. This guy has been fighting forever. And you compare the career between Gegard Mousasi and Austin Vanderford, you can see that Gegard has 58 matches as opposed to Austin Vanderford's 12 matches. This is Austin's first loss in mixed martial arts, and I mean, this was going to be a tough one either way. Even if he won, I imagine this fight to be one of those that would have went the distance if he won using his wrestling. The wrestling was a big factor. This is a fighter that a lot of people, I guess, had a lot of negative thoughts about and had a lot of negative energy. But Austin Vanderford, being so young in his career, and being only at the age of 31 and fighting for a title, just like the way that he did against Gegard Mousasi, going to a different country, especially during this COVID time. I know a couple of the countries are wide open, but flying all the way out there, adjusting to the time zone, this is all stuff that you have to get used to when you want to fight for these championship belts. This is a great first showing. I mean, for Austin Vanderford, the fights leading up to this, the 10-0 career that he had, the 11-0 career that he had before this. And I mean, if you're going to lose to someone, Gegard Mousasi is not someone that you should be ashamed of taking a loss from. Gegard, like I said many times in this podcast, just alone is one of the all-time greats at middleweight. I agree with him. Funny enough, at the end of the fight, he mentioned that he didn't believe that he was one of the greats in mixed martial arts. Now he believes so. He's going to take on any challenge. And interestingly enough, he wants to fight Israel Adesanya, but Anderson Silva in a boxing match. We've seen Anderson Silva go against Julio Cesar Chavez, Tito Ortiz, and he's looked phenomenal. Julio Cesar Chavez, former champion. There's a lot of belts in boxing, so I mean, take that as you will. But the son of one of the greats, Julio Cesar Senior, and defeating him in a fight that he completely nullified, Junior. Anderson Silva in his boxing career has been great. Earlier in his career, people were wanting him to fight Roy Jones Jr., and a lot of people saw that would be a very interesting fight. Roy Jones was in the twilight of his career, I believe, or in the middle part of his career. So, it would have been a really interesting to see that one. But back to this, Gegard Mousasi says that he wants to face Anderson Silva in a boxing match. And I think if this is one of, how Francis Ngannou is calling out Tyson Fury, the heavyweight champion of the world, that one is a little bit more, I would say, in the distant, not impossible, something that we saw Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather Jr. We all thought that it was impossible, including me, until it started picking up some steam and you're like, wow, this could actually happen. Anyways, I bring that up to say that Francis Ngannou, Tyson Fury, it's very much in the distance. But Gegard Mousasi versus Anderson Silva, this is one of those ones that could possibly happen because we know that Coker is very open to these kind of matches, sending his fighters to one championship, having one championship fighters come into Bellator and fight his champions. He's very much open to this concept of trading fighters for one fight deals in other organizations. And on top of that, the deal that Bellator has with Showtime very much could allow the free agent, and I'm going to say it again, free agent Anderson Silva to do what he needs to do and fight Gegard Mousasi. Now, I think it's all but possible for this fight to happen. But what we have to understand is that Anderson Silva is very much at the beginning stages of his boxing career, even though he's been boxing for almost all of his life. And at the end of the day, will a name like Gegard Mousasi bring in the fans that he wants to watch a pay-per-view like that? Gegard is an amazing fighter, but he might be too good for Anderson Silva. Even though Anderson has fought former boxing champion, Gegard Mousasi is very much young not young, but he is in the prime of his career, no matter what his age is. Even though he's 36 years old, Gegard is, but he's such a dangerous fighter. I mean, you saw what he just did with Austin, and you saw the stance that he actually had in that fight. It was very much a boxing stance, even though he was waiting for the shots to come from Austin. But just waiting for those openings, pinpoint accuracy. I know Austin was throwing really wide and wild shots, and exposed his head a lot in that fight. And Gegard was able to take advantage of it. But Gegard is still a very dangerous opponent. Would Anderson Silva take on someone like that, who is still, very much in their fighting career? And that's the question for me. Is Anderson Silva ready for someone like that? And on top of that, I just can't see a fight between Anderson Silva and Gegard Mousasi getting a lot of hype, a lot of fanfare behind it. I think most of the fans that are going to come are people like us, hardcore fans, who are just, catch onto the dream of this fight and just imagine something like this happening. I think it just opens up a lot of other fights for a lot of other fighters in Bellator. They have this option. Maybe once you open this can of worms and allow Gegard to fight someone like Anderson Silva, you're just opening up a can of worms. And then, you got Cyborg, you got Lima, you have all of these fighters, MVP, who could box, and I think have been asking for boxing matches every once in a while. MVP is a little bit different scenario. I think Ariel Helwani was asking him about boxing Jake Paul, but he very much wants to stay in the MMA stream and do his thing in mixed martial arts. Anyways, once you open this can of worms and allow Gegard Mousasi to box, then all of these fighters are going to think that that's part of the allure and part of the situation at Bellator, meaning that, hey, this is open to this guy, it could be open to me as well. And then also, like I said, most of the fans are going to be there for Anderson Silva. And if you're watching because of Gegard Mousasi, he did have a really great UFC career, ended on a high note. I know a lot of people have an idea of Chris Weidman now, but his last fight against Chris Weidman in 2017 in Buffalo, New York, that one was a big win for him. Chris Weidman was just coming off becoming a champion, and he was very much dangerous, a wrestler going against an amazing striker. Gegard Mousasi was known as a very technical striker in that time in his career, and to go against a wrestler. See, right now Gegard is so well rounded that we forget that we thought that sometimes a wrestler could take advantage of him and take him down and do what he does. But I think that a lot of doors open for Gegard Mousasi now. He's open to all competitors. Let's see what happens about this Anderson Silva fight. Austin Vanderford, we can't forget about him. I think he's going to be back at it again. He doesn't have the big names on the resume, but facing someone and having the cage time against someone like Gegard Mousasi is always helpful, even though it's a devastating loss. And obviously he wouldn't want to hear this from me. But I just think that there's a lot of potential for Austin Vanderford. The wrestling capability that he has, and if he can match that with the striking, he could be a very dangerous fighter. And he's still very much young in his career, hasn't had that many fights, 12 matches, like I said, and then only being the age of 31. I mean, this guy doesn't have a lot of wear and tear on his body, and he's gaining the experience. He's massive for the division, meaning that, he's a big time name for that division. He's someone that I could see totally coming back and fighting for a title again. But what a great fight. What a great atmosphere in Dublin, Ireland. It was a great one. Missing a few fights on the card. Peter Queally was one of them, the big one. Unfortunately, that one didn't happen. That would have been amazing to hear him walk into the arena. What an atmosphere that would have been. But we'll see you next time. Thank you for listening. If you can subscribe, hit the bell notification, that'd be really helpful. You can listen to the podcast on the different podcast platforms. You can go ahead and leave a comment and rate over there. Thank you for listening. This has been the Body Punch Podcast. My name is Naz. Bye.